there's a syndrome, there's a neurological syndrome where like a person can have a stroke and they don't recognize, like a heavy neglect syndrome, where they might not recognize their right arm and they'll be like, why is this arm here all the time? I don't know whose it
Wow.
is, right? And then you have to work with the person to try to recognize that's your arm, and et cetera.
Right.
They may never get it, they may get it. But how is it that we don't, what I don't know how I want to ask this question, but it seems to me obvious that we don't see the world as us. We see the world as
We other the world.
we other
We other
Yes.
the
the
world.
world, and even parts of our own country we other. And
Mhm.
so what can we work with, like cultures or political systems, in the same way you would work with a neurological patient to say, oh no, that's your arm, shows up every time because it's part of you. And look how much nicer it is when we, pay good attention to the arm and don't do bad things. So,
Yeah.
I mean, is there a hope for not othering? And here's the weirder part of the question. Could that hope come from having an invading force from either climate as like an externalized invading force that we have to unify against, or UFOs as another externalized invading force? In other words, to what extent can we make this change happen?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question. Mark's view on this, and this is not something I've studied. I'm not a political scientist, let alone that particular kind of political scientist. Um, I literally think that probably alien invasion, which I'm fairly sure is not going to happen anytime soon, would be the one thing that could do that. I actually am very pessimistic, even that climate change could do that. Now, I don't know, 100 years from now, when things are really, really, really dire, maybe. Even then, I'm not very optimistic.
So it has to be something like that's fast and obvious.
Yes, and also in which all nations' interests are aligned.
Mhm.
Like keeping the Martians from taking over the planet and eating all of us, everyone would be aligned on that mission, right?
Right.
But even in the depths of really catastrophic climate change, in the near and midterm future, there will be winners and losers on the Earth, no matter what policy decisions we make. Um, and I'm somebody who believes that war is something we're not ever going to get rid of as a practical matter. It's been with us, in some form or another since the dawn of time, and I think it's gonna stay with us. I think it's a tragedy, more or less, in the literal sense. But yeah, I don't have much hope for a fundamentally and enduringly peaceful world
Wait, what
at all.
evidence do we have that it's been with us since the dawn of time?
Oh, there's lots of archaeological evidence, um, you know, uh, going way back. So, for instance, the first battle of which we have a tactical account, i.e., these people on the battlefield did this, and then these people on the battlefield did that, was from 1274 BC, and we have
The
accounts of battles.
Egyptians against the Syrians or something like that?
It was the Hittites versus the
Hittites.
Assyrians, I
Yeah,
think, if
Oh
I
yeah,
God, there's
recall
yeah.
half a
correctly.
weakness
Do
in the
not
Middle
quote me
East.
on that. I know it was the Battle of Kadesh or
Uh-huh.
Kadesh, but yeah. And we have archaeological evidence, long before that. And also anthropologists get in on this as well, because what they discover, and again, I'm well beyond my field of expertise here, but what they've discovered in a lot of cultures that have not, until recently had contact with the outside world, is that in one way, shape, or form, they all engage in organized violence of some sort or another. So
Has it always been mostly men?
no, well, mostly, yes. It's always been mostly men, but it is not always, and I'm not sure ever was, exclusively men. No,
Right, right.
Well, I hope you're wrong.
I do too.
I do too.
And I will always argue that war is not inevitable. I was doing an earlier Pandas, I think 2 Pandas ago, where I was telling the person we were talking to how disappointed I was in Star Wars movies, because these are the most advanced, technologically advanced, they can do anything. And yet they're still having wars. what, WTF? Why is that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
FDR said we have to invest in the science of human relations or something like that,
Yeah.
because it's the getting along with other people that's going to basically shape the future of humanity.
Yeah. So my
Yeah.
bet is
No, I
that
completely agree.
war will end, but it'll be an extremely long journey. It'll be a very painful journey. It won't happen in any of the lifetimes that are current here on Earth, perhaps not even many multiple generations. But
Yeah.
I think, humans are very clever, and we're more and more clever in ways of hurting ourselves and destroying others. And I think eventually we'll have to use the cliche, pay the piper. Eventually this will run its course in some way.
Yeah.
I hope you're right. But yes, I completely agree with you that none of us or anybody even remotely related to us downstream is going to see that future. And I would say that while I personally believe that war as a phenomenon is a permanent feature rather of humanity, I don't believe that any given war is inevitable. I don't believe much of anything actually is inevitable outside, the laws of physics, the Newtonian ones, not the quantum ones. And so, so I think striving for solving specific problems that might lead to war and striving for a system in which war is turned to, at the very least, less often is an entirely virtuous product, which I think can and has paid real dividends, in our lifetimes. Absolutely.
Yeah.